If you have watched Saturday Night Live the past few months, you already know my next guest. He's emerged as one of the brightest lights of the cast on that show.
Imagine being invited to The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. As we all know, this was not just an ordinary late-night show. It was a popular show with a man trusted and loved by many for his unique persona and recognized as the king of late-night television. Now imagine being banned from the show. A mystery lady was booked. She showed up and everything went off script. Whatever happened that night was enough to ensure she was never invited again. But what did she do? Who is this lady? What happened next? And why did Johnny shut the door for good? Brace yourselves, because what happened might burst your bubbles. The Tonight Show. Long before streaming platforms took over bedtime routines and smartphones became the final screen people stared at before sleep, there was one show millions of Americans turned to every single night. It was not just a program, but more like a ritual, a cultural habit, an indispensable companion to end the day. That show was The Tonight Show, forever changing how the world watched television. According to history, The Tonight Show first aired on NBC in 1954. Its creator, Sylvester "Pat" Weaver, had a bold yet straightforward vision for its time. It included questions like, what if there was a late-night show airing just as the world was quieting down, where comedy, conversation, music, and mischief collided? And what if television could end the day not with a lull but with laughter? The original host, Steve Allen, set the tone with his wit and musical brilliance. He was described as unpredictable, sharp, and charming. The format was loose and spontaneous, making every night feel fresh. Sketches and songs blended with interviews and improvised moments. It felt real. Not every joke landed, and not every guest interview was smooth, but that was part of the appeal. It was not scripted to perfection. It was human. As television grew, so did The Tonight Show. It adapted, yet always held on to its late-night charm. The show was designed for adults and strictly not for kids. With nothing but a soft glow from the screen and clapping from a studio audience, The Tonight Show became the last voice millions of people heard each night. It was funny, friendly, and familiar. Viewers felt like they were sitting on the couch with the host. No matter how famous the guest was or how big the joke was, it always felt personal and relatable. It had the magic of live theater and the intimacy of a private conversation. Every night, households across America kept a date with their television sets to participate in that experience. The show leaned into more emotional and political moments when Jack Paar took over from Steve Allen. Paar could be moody, sensitive, and spontaneous. He once famously walked off the show mid-broadcast after a joke was censored, and he returned a few weeks later with a tearful explanation. Viewers did not just laugh with The Tonight Show. Sometimes they cried, sometimes they gasped, but they always tuned in. And the guests? They were icons, actors, musicians, politicians, athletes, and even authors. The Tonight Show was not just a showcase for stars, it helped create them. Many guests went from unknown to household names overnight simply because they sat on that famous couch and were introduced to the world. If you made it onto The Tonight Show, you had arrived. There was also the magic of music. A live band played for the audience in and out of segments each night. The music added rhythm and energy. It made every entrance feel dramatic, and every joke felt part of a performance. The band did not just play. They reacted, laughed, and bantered with the host. They were part of the show's heartbeat. More than anything, The Tonight Show became a mirror. It reflected what was going on in America, whether that meant making fun of the president or giving airtime to groundbreaking artists. And yet it never lost its sense of fun. It was a show that brought people together. No matter what had happened that day, you could count on 30 minutes or an hour of escape, delivered with a wink and a smile. By the early 1960s, The Tonight Show had become more than just another program. It was an institution. NBC needed a new host to keep that tradition alive while moving it into a new era. They needed someone who could connect with Middle America and Hollywood simultaneously. Someone who could make jokes about world leaders and still charm a room full of comedians. Someone who could be cool, calm, sharp, and unpredictable. That someone was Johnny Carson. His name was not yet legendary, and he was not a household face. But NBC saw something. Quiet confidence, a razor-sharp wit, and a likability that did not feel forced. No one could have predicted how much he would change the show when Carson took over in 1962. No one could have imagined how long he would reign or how deeply he would shape the world of late-night television. Let's look closely at who Johnny was and how he got into the popular show tonight, shall we? The rise of Johnny Carson. It all began in the quiet town of Corning, Iowa, when a boy named John William Carson was born on October 23, 1925. Few would have guessed that this ordinary child from the Midwest would one day become the most iconic face on American television. His early life was far from the bright lights of Hollywood. In a modest family, Johnny's father worked as a power company manager, while his mother, Ruth, nurtured her son's imagination and encouraged his creative spark. At 12, Johnny stumbled upon a book of magic tricks and was instantly captivated. This discovery marked the beginning of a lifelong fascination with performance. With a magician's kit he purchased using money saved from small jobs, he began entertaining family and neighbors under the stage name The Great Carson. These living room shows were more than just childhood fun. They were rehearsals for a career that would eventually redefine television. Although Johnny wasn't the most popular or well-liked student in high school, his intelligence and wit made him stand out. In his spare time, he listened to radio hosts and comedians, paying close attention to their delivery of lines and interactions with their listeners. He was a quiet boy with a sharp mind, soaking up every bit of performance technique like a sponge. He may not have had a grand stage yet, but he was already preparing for it. After graduation, Carson joined the United States Navy during World War II. He served as an ensign aboard the USS Pennsylvania. Even in the rigid environment of military life, his humor and talent found a way to shine. He frequently entertained his fellow sailors with comedy routines and card tricks to cheer them up during the war. Then, after the war, Carson returned home and enrolled at the University of Nebraska. By majoring in speech and radio at that institution, he demonstrated that he was more than just a show person. He was a writer and thinker with excellent skills in making others laugh. One of his most telling college projects was a senior thesis titled How to Write Comedian Jokes. Carson was learning to craft humor with precision and purpose. After college, he began his broadcasting career in Omaha, Nebraska, where he hosted radio programs and did some of everything behind the mic. His charm was unmistakable, and before long, television producers took notice. Carson moved to Los Angeles in the early 1950s to chase bigger opportunities. He started working for local stations and hosted several short-lived shows, including Carson's Cellar and Earn Your Vacation. Even though the performances ended, Johnny's style started to change. He established a reputation for handling the unpredictable nature of live television and adopted a dry, witty style of comedy and interviewing. Fortunately, he had a big break when he was asked to cover for the great Red Skelton at the time. Carson's effortless and captivating performance impressed both audience members and network executives. That moment marked the beginning of his steady rise through the ranks of television entertainment. Carson eventually landed a spot as the host of the Who Do You Trust game show. During this period, he truly began to master his interviewing skills. Unlike many hosts who dominated the conversation, Johnny let his guests shine while skillfully steering the dialogue. He was witty but not overbearing. He knew when to press for more and when to sit back. These years of hosting became a boot camp that prepared him for the most significant life opportunity. 2 years later, The Tonight Show needed a new host. Jack Paar had stepped down, and NBC searched for someone to maintain the show's popularity while adding a fresh spark. Initially, Carson was not the obvious choice, and he hesitated to take the role. He turned it down several times, unsure whether he wanted to be tied to a nightly show. However, NBC believed in his potential and eventually convinced him to say yes. On October 1, 1962, Johnny Carson debuted as the host of The Tonight Show. His first guest was the legendary Groucho Marx. From the very first episode, something just felt right. Carson brought a cool, calm presence to late night. His quick wit, comfortable body language, and ability to connect with guests and viewers made the show feel like a nightly invitation into his world. As time passed, Carson made The Tonight Show a cultural landmark. The audience grew accustomed to his monologues, and his recurring characters, such as Aunt Blabby and Karnak the Magnificent, became household names. In addition to his humor, Carson added charm and cadence to the film. He created room for laughter, sarcasm, conversation, and even quiet. He could raise an eyebrow or change his gaze to make people laugh without uttering a word. Johnny also became a kingmaker in comedy. For many rising comedians, an invitation to sit on Carson's couch was a career-defining moment. If he liked a performance enough to invite a guest to sit beside him after their set, that was a signal to the rest of the industry. It meant you had made it. Behind the desk, he was an expert at balancing humor and humanity. He never used cruel humor in his comedies. He made fun, but he did so with a twinkle in his eye. Guests felt secure, and audiences thought they were in on the joke. He was the host who could help people wind down their day positively. Johnny Carson became more than just a TV personality as the show grew popular. He became a nighttime companion to millions of viewers, bringing consistency to a chaotic world. Impressively, presidents tuned in, celebrities lined up for a guest slot, and families built their bedtime routines around his show. He was the voice of late night, making America laugh when the day was over. However, even the smoothest surfaces can conceal deep cracks. Under the charm and poise that defined Johnny Carson on camera, some characteristics did not always match his public persona. Those who worked closely with him saw a different perspective. According to his co-workers, he had erratic mood swings, stringent backstage rules, and a temper that could erupt at any time. Are you curious about the costs of maintaining his crown to the late-night king and those around him? That truth, raw and revealing, is coming next. Behind the scenes. Behind the smooth charm and perfectly timed punchlines, Johnny Carson maintained a level of control over The Tonight Show that few truly understood. On screen, he was America's nightly comfort. He was calm, witty, and endlessly entertaining. Off-screen, however, he ran a tight ship with a sharp eye for detail, a quick temper, and an unspoken rule that everything had to be right. While the world admired his effortless delivery, those behind the scenes knew it came with a cost. Carson was a perfectionist in every sense of the word. Every pause, every joke, and every camera angle mattered to him. He expected nothing less than excellence from the crew and was not one to overlook mistakes. A missed cue, a technical hiccup, or even a late guest could trigger one of his infamous mood shifts. While he rarely lost his cool in front of an audience, the backstage atmosphere after a flawed segment could turn tense and uncomfortable. Producers, writers, and assistants often walked on eggshells, trying to predict his mood on any given day. Staff members who had worked with him for years admitted that while he was brilliant, he could also be distant. Carson was known to go days without speaking to specific team members if he felt let down by their work. He did not tolerate laziness or carelessness, and though he was never physically aggressive, his disapproval was sharp and unforgettable. The pressure to meet his standards created a high-stress environment. Some people thrived in it, while others quietly disappeared. Guests were not immune to his expectations. Carson wanted them to be punctual, prepared, and polished. He had little patience for celebrities who treated the show casually or were unready to perform. Johnny's demeanor would shift if a guest stumbled through an interview or appeared arrogant. He could shut down a conversation with a glance or an offhand comment, and the audience would instantly feel it. While he rarely confronted guests outright, he had a way of making things cold and awkward without raising his voice. Johnny's mood could turn without warning. One moment, he would laugh with the crew. The next, he would be quiet and distant. His team learned to read the room carefully. They knew when to speak and when to stay silent. His intensity never entirely switched off. He wanted the show to be flawless night after night, and when it was not, the weight of that failure settled on everyone. Many of his closest staff members stayed loyal to him despite the pressure. They respected his vision and his unmatched talent. Still, they all understood that working with Johnny Carson meant giving everything and expecting little warmth. He gave America laughter, but the price of that perfection was often hidden behind closed studio doors. Up next, we will dive into those hidden moments. The awkward interviews, the controversies and tension, and the onstage clashes left audiences stunned and insiders shaken. Keep watching to find out. Controversies on The Tonight Show. While The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson was built on laughs, applause, and perfectly timed monologues, it also featured moments that strayed far from the script. Under the glitz and glamour of nighttime TV, there was stress, unease, and a few shocking confrontations that nobody ever anticipated. From cold interviews to backstage arguments that erupted into public view, Carson's couch turned into a battlefield for pride, ego, and the unpredictability of live television. One of the most memorable events occurred when comedian Don Rickles, known for his scathing jabs, went too far, or at least that's what Johnny Carson believed. During an episode hosted by Bob Newhart, Rickles accidentally broke Carson's prized cigarette box. When Johnny returned to the show and found the broken box, he did not take it lightly. Instead of letting it go, he marched over to the set of CPO Sharkey, where Rickles was filming with cameras rolling. Johnny confronted him live in front of the audience. What followed was a hilarious but tense exchange. The moment seemed playful on the surface, but those close to the show knew Carson was sending a message. He could turn anything into a joke but never let disrespect slide. Another widely rumored incident involved actress Zsa Zsa Gabor. She asked Johnny if he wanted to pet her when she brought her cat to the set. The rumored punchline, Johnny replying that he would if she moved the cat became legendary on television. Even though the episode has never been confirmed or located in archives, the rumor quickly gained traction and enhanced the show's spicy reputation. Whether true or not, it was one of the most frequently cited quotes ever connected to The Tonight Show. Controversy was not reserved for jokes. Moments of genuine discomfort played out in real time. During an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Johnny mocked his accent and intelligence. Arnold responded calmly but directly, defending himself with dignity and confidence. The audience laughed nervously. Carson, usually in control, seemed briefly unsettled. It was a rare moment when the guest shifted the power dynamic. That unspoken tension made it one of the most memorable interviews of its time. There was also the time Carson nearly got tackled by a leopard. Regular guest Joan Embry, an animal expert, brought a young leopard on stage. What was supposed to be a fun animal segment quickly became chaotic when the leopard slipped from its handler's grip and lunged toward Johnny. His reaction was a mix of panic and forced comedy. Although he laughed it off for the cameras, studio insiders said he was furious once the show cut to a commercial. From that day forward, strict rules about animal safety were enforced. Another shocking moment was the interview with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Their mere presence divided viewers. Carson questioned them about their artistic expression and politics, and Lennon pushed back. The conversation felt less like an interview and more like a philosophical standoff. Yoko remained composed, but John's frustration was visible. The air grew stiff. It was not playful tension. It was fundamental disagreement. By the end of the segment, viewers had witnessed something far more profound than a celebrity chat. Some controversies never made it to air but lived on through backstage whispers. Actor Oliver Reed once showed up for an interview visibly intoxicated. He slurred, rambled through answers, and disregarded Carson's questions entirely. The segment was scrapped before airing, but it left the staff shaken. Carson reportedly ordered that the footage be locked away. For someone who controlled every detail of his show, that night crossed a line he would never let the audience see. And then there were the guests who never came back. Some rubbed Johnny the wrong way and were quietly blocked. Comedians who tried to outshine him, actors who acted entitled, and anyone who challenged his authority directly found themselves uninvited. Getting on Carson's team's list, which was unofficial, meant that you would no longer be making late-night appearances. Nevertheless, the controversy did not derail the show. If anything, they gave it a beat. The audience never knew what would happen next, and that unpredictability wrapped in laughter and elegance made the show so compelling. However, as much as Johnny Carson easily lit up the screen, the spotlight could not hide the deep feuds and rivalries behind the scenes. An anonymous blogger even jokingly made a post saying that Johnny's days on The Tonight Show were slowly coming to an end. Stay tuned to find out if this blogger was discussing the future or if this post was pointless. The fall of the show and Johnny's retirement. As they say, every empire eventually faces its twilight, and for The Tonight Show under Johnny Carson's reign, that time came with a mix of elegance, emotion, and exhaustion. After 3 decades of laughter, celebrity interviews, and unforgettable television moments, the golden glow surrounding the show began to dim. Though it remained a ratings powerhouse, the cracks were undeniable. The audience had changed, the industry had shifted, and even Johnny Carson himself seemed to feel the weight of time pressing in. By the late 1980s, the television landscape had evolved dramatically. The competition grew fiercer, with hosts like David Letterman rising fast in popularity, particularly among younger viewers. Cable television exploded with fresh programming, new formats, and bolder content. What once made The Tonight Show revolutionary now began to feel traditional. Though Johnny's loyal audience remained, the show no longer held the monopoly on late-night magic. Backstage, Carson had grown more distant. His famously private personality became even more pronounced as he aged. While he once enjoyed playful banter and lighthearted backstage chats, insiders reported that Johnny became increasingly reserved and tightly guarded. The joy he once radiated during live performances was dimmed by long production hours, mounting pressure, and a desire for something more or maybe something less. There were also mounting tensions about the show's future. Rumors swirled about who would eventually replace him. Some believed David Letterman was the natural heir to the throne, having built a strong following in the time slot that followed Carson's. Others at the network had different ideas, with NBC executives seeing Jay Leno as a more commercially viable option. This internal conflict caused friction between the network and its talent and among fans who argued fiercely over who deserved the legendary desk. Amid all the speculation and uncertainty, Johnny Carson made the final decision. In May of 1991, he announced his retirement. It was not a sudden move, but it still hit the entertainment world like a thunderclap. After 30 years as America's most trusted late-night voice, he would say goodnight for the final time. The lead-up to his farewell was emotional. Celebrities, politicians, musicians, and fans lined up to pay tribute to the man who had been a nightly guest in their homes for decades. His final week on air was filled with laughter, memories, and tears. On May 22, 1992, Johnny Carson walked onto the stage for the last time. He did not need a parade of guests or a carnival of fireworks. Instead, he spoke directly to his audience, thanked them sincerely, and bowed out with grace. When the closing music played and Johnny waved goodbye, it felt like the end of an era, not just for television, but for a generation. After his retirement, Johnny vanished almost entirely from the public eye. Carson chose privacy. Like many stars who linger in the spotlight or stage a comeback, he spent his remaining years away from cameras, living quietly and comfortably. This move only deepened his mystique and preserved audiences' respect for him. However, the show he left behind was never quite the same. Though The Tonight Show continued with other capable hosts, Johnny's departure left something irreplaceable. His timing, tone, and room command could not be handed down like scripts. They belonged exclusively to him. The farewell may have been elegant, but it marked the end of an era shaped by a singular talent. And while fans accepted his departure, many could not help but wonder what else lay behind that signature smile. Behind Johnny's flawless goodnight was a man who had endured decades of fame, pressure, and perfection. The question remains, was the cost of being television royalty greater than the glory itself? Next, we will examine Johnny Carson's legacy in greater detail, including its positive, negative, and untold aspects. Stay with me. Johnny's demise and living legacy. When Johnny Carson passed away on January 23, 2005, the world did not just lose a man, it lost a cultural icon whose voice had once served as the nightly lullaby for millions. The announcement of his passing from complications related to emphysema sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Even in his lengthy retirement, Carson remained a symbol of excellence in late-night television. His death marked the final curtain on an era that could never be repeated. Tributes poured in from across generations. Comedians, talk show hosts, actors, and even presidents paused to honor the man who had redefined late-night entertainment. From heartfelt television segments to front-page headlines, it became clear that Johnny was more than a host. Johnny Carson was a constant presence in American life, effortlessly bringing laughter into living rooms during times of joy and comfort and moments of national pain. Honestly, that kind of connection does not fade easily. Remarkably, what made Johnny's legacy so strong was his talent on stage, but the standard he set behind the scenes. He taught television how to respect the audience. He believed that good comedy did not have to be loud or mean-spirited. Instead, it could be bright, warm, and deeply human. He also knew when to speak and when to listen. That balance made his interviews legendary and his humor timeless. To this day, Johnny Carson remains the blueprint for what a late-night host should be. His influence can be seen in the pacing of opening monologues, the tone of celebrity interviews, and the elegant balance of wit and warmth. Every host who has taken the desk since has done so in their shadow, whether they admit it or not. Some tried to match his polish, others tried to break away from his mold, but none could escape the foundation he laid. Even in this digital era, where content is fast and fleeting and technology is advanced, Johnny's moments still shine. Classic clips from his show continue to attract new fans on streaming platforms and social media. Young viewers, many of whom have never seen him live, are discovering the charm of his interactions, the precision of his jokes, and the warmth of his presence. And that is the mark of a lasting legacy that outlasts the individual and grows stronger over time. However, perhaps Johnny's most significant legacy isn't just found in the countless hours of late-night television or the unforgettable interviews and sketches, it's in the feeling he left behind. He made people feel seen, heard, and entertained in a way that few others ever could. Night after night, Johnny Carson invited viewers into a space where humor softened the edges of life's challenges. He reminded us that a good laugh could be the perfect ending to a long, chaotic day, and that even the most unpredictable moments could be met with a twinkle in the eye and a clever comeback. But beyond the perfectly timed jokes and his effortless charm, there was something more profound, a quiet strength and a sense of mystery that made him all the more captivating. He wasn't just America's favorite host. He was the man who mastered the art of letting others shine while still leaving audiences intrigued by the person he chose to keep slightly out of reach. So now, What do you think truly made Johnny Carson's legacy so unshakable? Was it his natural charisma, his commitment to the craft, or perhaps the enduring mystique of the man behind the curtain who knew when to speak, listen, and let the laughter roll? Let us know what you think in the comments. We'd love to hear how Johnny Carson left his mark on you. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on that notification bell for more mind-blowing videos. We hope to see you in our next video. Bye!